Introduction. What the heck is Balala the Fairies? Balala the Fairies is a TV franchise that was and still is made and aired in China. It started as a live-action series, however it has an animated show. The animated show aired on Jiaji Cartoon Channel. The live-action series doesn't have English subs. Because of this, I haven't watched it. However, the anime does. This is what I will be reviewing in this video. The translation. Before I get into the show itself, I would like to talk about the subtitles. The subtitles aren't the best. They get the job done, sure. However, this is in vain because it isn't accurate. I don't speak Chinese, so I can't confirm exactly how inaccurate it is. But even so, I have to mention that the names aren't even translated into Roman letters. Instead, the names of the characters are changed to white people names. I don't have anything against white names, but considering this is a Chinese anime, it seems somewhat disrespectful to the culture. Though maybe I shouldn't be mad because the subtitles are official, and I think the animation team behind the Balala the Fairies chose the white names. Don't quote me on that though. It may not be true. Animation. In any anime, the animation quality is one of the first things someone would notice. It usually isn't the most important thing, but it is one of the first things you may think of when you think of anime. The animation in Balala the Fairies is a mixed bag. It can be pretty good at times. After all, it is better than anything I can do. However, at times it can be kind of bad. Sometimes it kind of looks like a low-budget episode of Gem and the Holograms. It also does this thing where the characters turn into chibis, but it happens way too frequently. But one of the things that it does that makes it look extremely awkward is out of place CGI. The CGI by itself looks good, but it doesn't look right when it's right next to the 2D. The 3D models were used for backgrounds and most of the magical items. There is also a common usage of special effects. Special effects look very cheap and royalty-free, but they do the job. It also has a lot of English text in its visuals. If I was just shown the pictures of the English text in the show, I would assume it was an American localization of an anime. Like something 4Kids did, for example. The soundtrack. The soundtrack of Balala the Fairies is fine. It's not ear-grating or annoying, it's just okay. The instrumentals are very bland, and there isn't very much to say about them. They sound extremely royalty-free. However, there are two songs on the soundtrack that are pretty good. Those songs are the opening and the ending. The opening is incredibly catchy, and the ending is cute. They don't have much hype in them, and they aren't super epic, but they are good songs. The only problem is the opening song is overused in the show itself. Instead of making a new song specifically for the transformations and attack, they usually just have the opening play again. Characters. In this segment, I'll talk about the main characters. Ling Mei Shui. Subname Michelle Lin. Ling Mei Shui is the pink magical girl, but she acts like a glue cure. I mean, she's not a cure at all because this is Balala the Fairies, not Pretty Cure. But you get what my point is. She's quite studious and a bit hot-headed. I wouldn't say she's mean, but she does get mad at her sister Meishi. Ling Meishi. Subname Maggie Lin. Ling Meishi is a blue magical girl, but she acts like a pink cure. Thinking about it, she's very similar She has a very similar personality to Nagisa from Futari Wa Pretty Cure, and Mei Shui has the personality of Honoka. Though I'd say that Meishi is way more aggressive than Nagisa. Nagisa is quite reasonable, but Meishi gets mad at people for no reason. Xiao Lan, subname Shirley. Xiao Lan is the yellow one, and it kind of fits. She's the oldest one of the group, and the others look up to her. For this reason, some people would call her the leader of the group. That does make sense, so I can't argue with it. However, I never really saw it like that. She isn't the main character. I would say the main character of the show would be Mei Shui, because she is the most prominent in the story. Xiao Qian, subname Sandy. Xiao Qian is the purple one. But, like the other characters, her color doesn't dictate the type of character she is. Xiao Qian is the child of the group. She's 5 years old, to be specific, but she's smart for her age, though she is very disobedient. However, she's still an endearing character. Some may say she's, quote, annoying, but she's a kid, so that's to be expected. From what I can tell, she's a new character in this season and didn't appear in the live-action show, but oddly enough, she flat out disappears in the next season. The writing and story. The writing and story of Balala the Fairies are both pretty good. It has quite an engaging story. I'd say the writing and story are the best attributes of this show. The plot is your typical good versus evil sort of thing, but it's handled very well. The pacing is part of what makes this the case. In most shows like this, they would have the plot, villains, and main characters introduced all in episode 1. Balala the Fairies doesn't do this. Instead, the show takes its time and slowly introduces the main characters in episode 1 along with an engaging cliffhanger at the end. There's also the villains. The villains don't have much depth except for Water Spirit, but we'll talk about her later. However, despite the lack of depth, they still are a good part of the show. This is because they don't have a very specific formula for how they fight. In other Magical Girl shows, they would have monsters created in a very specific way and have them defeated in also a very specific way. However, in Balala the Fairies, they create monsters very simply and also don't always create monsters. Sometimes they just wave their magic items and give the people bad luck. But there are also parts hard to take seriously. For some reason, they have anthropomorphic flowers, and there's a rock turtle. Not to mention, some designs are just plain childish looking. However, going back to the positives, it's also the type of show that isn't afraid to touch upon hard to deal with subject matter. Xiao Quan, subnamed Sandy, a young apprentice fairy, was established to have lost her mother. This was often brought up, and she missed her mother a lot. She fled the fairy world and went to Earth to find her mother. Because of reasons, they stay on Earth. They fight a war against witches, and at the end of the series, it's revealed that one of the witches, Water Spirit, was her mom the whole time. This reveal wasn't out of nowhere. It had some good foreshadowing beforehand. When Xiao Qian found this out, she was quite surprised. However, her mom had died after that. Now the season still has a happy ending after that, but it was pretty depressing. But even so, the show dealt with it maturely. It wasn't super edgy about it, and they didn't have any unnecessary gore. With that being said, it does have some story problems. There is a problematic part of the show that does does occur a lot. The problematic thing being the relationship between Shi Xiaolong, subnamed Tim, and Ling Meihui. Xiaolong is a plus-size man and is often made fun of by Meihui. I get that in this instance, it was his fault for being plus-size and wasn't a pre-existing condition. But that's no excuse to harass someone. Portraying harassment is okay as long as it's portrayed in a negative light. However, this is not the case. Meishi is one of the main characters, and her actions are treated by the other characters as completely normal. I get that being overweight is unhealthy, and his weight is his fault for making food choices and made and such, but that doesn't excuse bullying. That doesn't excuse constantly being a jerk to him and making him feel bad. Plus, it's not like you would do this to anyone who was underweight. Being underweight is even more unhealthy, but no one gets harassed for it. I'm not saying that you should do that to them, but this shows a double standard. At the beginning of the season, Xiaolong was shown to be somewhat of a bad person, but by the end he becomes better. So he doesn't deserve it. I mean, he still wouldn't deserve it back when he acted toxic to others, but he especially doesn't deserve it after his character development. Conclusion. In conclusion, Balala the Fairies was a good show. It has some problematic elements, but that's okay as long as you realize it does. I wouldn't show it to my hypothetical kids if I had any without discussing it to them. I do believe it teaches some bad morals to children, but if that's discussed, then it's fine. Other than that, it is a fun show that would give kids something fun to watch.